Hello, my friends, and happy Thursday. Sorry about the slightly later start. We had some technical difficulties, but we're fine now. Everybody's great, and we are ready to make a beautiful bracelet. So, we are all really inspired by this time of the year, by the changing leaves and those last few fall blooms. And that is what I called this bracelet. It's the Autumn Bloom bracelet. And I have it in four, no, sorry, five, five colors. And of course, I made them all, so I love them all. And I hope you find your favorites. And so first I'll tell you a little story. So this right here, of course, in addition to the fall colors, but it is the floral button, or at least I'm using it as a button. So that is the inspiration for this bracelet. I absolutely adore these floral buttons, which they're not actually a button. This is what it looks like. It's a flower with a hole in the center. And I love using these as a button. They just work out so well. And this is still some of our reproduction flower beads, which this is actually the last of for some of these colors. Most of these colors, in fact. So we are going to enjoy and savor this because these, unfortunately, are never to be seen again as the glass is completely gone.
Fonda says, good evening, everyone. Happy Thursday.
Hi, Fonda, and happy Thursday to you, my friend.
Ellen says, hi, Irina and everyone.
Hi, Ellen.
Trudy says, hello, everyone.
Hello, Trudy. Okay, my friends. So I have this bracelet in five colors. And the first one, the one that we're looking at right now, is the Candy Apple Hydrangea. You know, I have this hydrangea tree in my yard and it blooms in the fall and it is just so very, very lovely. And it's in these kind of fallish pinks, just like these pinks. It's literally exactly like that. And of course, we have some greenery in the leaves. So when I made this bracelet, I thought, wow, this is exactly like my beautiful hydrangea tree. If you're in the Midwest, you know exactly what I'm talking about. All the blushy hydrangeas that are blooming right around this time of the year, and they are spectacular. Some of them are a little bit lighter, some are very, very bright, and they're all these kind of fallish pinks.
Patricia says, hello, all, on this beautiful evening.
Hi, Patricia, and thanks for joining us.
Karen says, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Karen.
Allie says, so pretty, ready to be stacked with other cool bracelets.
You bet. Yes, these are definitely so very stackable. And hi, Allie. Thanks for pointing it out.
Althea says, good Thursday evening, jewelry friends.
Hi, Althea, and good evening to you, my friend. All right, so let me tell you about the colors, and then we will get started on the project. So this next one in the grays and blues is a stormy sky. So there's just enough storm here to make it a little moody and fun, and it's that kind of fallish sky that is the inspiration for the colorway. And then our third option is falling leaves, because I mean, all you have to do is just look at this. This is literally all the different colors of the falling leaves. This is what am I thinking? It's Red Creek Jasper. And if you're familiar with Red Creek Jasper, and then of course we have red tiger eye and a little bit of smoky quartz, so it's those beautiful colors of falling leaves. And next we have Purple Sunrise, and that is this one. So this is a little bit different than the others. So instead of the bracelet being all gemstone like the other bracelets, I actually use some of the reproduction beads in the body of the bracelet right here. And that, of course, is because, well, look at this, the button and those beautiful triple window reproduction beads is just such a perfect combo. And then we have, last but not least, golden amethyst. And look at this. So the button, you know, I have talked about the reproduction flowers. We have reproduction beads in various shapes, including flowers. And when you look at those vintage colors that we used for the reproduction beads, those colors are actually old cane. These were made in the 50s and prior to that. So unfortunately, at this point, it's impossible to reproduce a lot of these colors. We just don't see colors like this anymore. But we still had a handful of these gorgeous flowers left, and this one is like an amethyst and golden yellow. And so that matches perfectly with the actual amethyst. And then, of course, golden tiger eye. I mean, like, what are the chances of finding natural gemstone that just really matches the button?
Katie O says, I'm sorry, Katie S says, Happy Thursday, all.
I'm sorry, who was it? Katie.
Katie S, yep.
Hi, Katie. Sorry, somehow I missed your name, and I'm so glad you joined us, my dear. Okay, so I believe we covered it all, and so just going back a little bit, just to point out some of the gemstones. I know I started describing the gemstones rather, maybe the third bracelet in, but I'm going to backtrack a little bit because it's always really fun to know exactly what is in the bracelets. And I know I said that this was Red Creek, but you know, it occurred to me it is actually not Red Creek. It comes in very, very similar colors. But this is actually Bird's Eye Rhyolite. And then we have red tiger eye and smoky quartz. And then in the stormy sky, we have, I'm sure you can see that this is a little bit more blingy. And that is because this is titanium coated agate with a little bit of sodalite and a little bit of, this is blue chalcedony, right? Yes,
I think it's jade.
Dyed jade, that's right. But it's the color of blue chalcedony. And then, of course, I absolutely love fuchsite. It's one of my favorite stones. It's this right here, that rich green with a few little color pops that come from ruby in the fuchsite. And this is a very unusual stone. It's Mongolian agate. And yes, those are the natural colors. And we all love tourmaline. And that is what we have on the other side of the candy apple hydrangea colorway.
Linda says, late to the party. Excited to be here.
Hi, Linda. You're fashionably late. And guess what? We have not even started yet. We have just been chatting. Well, mostly me. I've been chatting and just saying hello and going over the various gemstones in these bracelets. But we are just about ready to start once we say hello to a few more beading friends.
Yolanda says hello. Happy Thursday. I made it on.
Hi, Yolanda, and happy Thursday to you.
Kathy K says beautiful bracelets.
Hi, Kathy.
And Yolanda adds pretty bracelets.
Oh, thank you so much. And my friends, I am so happy you're all here to join me this evening for this bracelet. I had so much fun working on it. And this is one of the projects where I used a barrel knot made out of leather, and that is what we're going to start with. So I'm thinking, let's move everything and just leave one of our bracelets so I have a little room. So whenever I make and wear these bracelets with the barrel knot, and I put these barrel knots in necklaces, in bracelets, even in earrings. In fact, I have a number of earrings that I both have made into kits as well as earrings that I wear myself that start out with this barrel knot. So it actually is so incredibly versatile. So in this case, we are using it as part of our clasp as well as a decorative element. It's just part of the boho aesthetic that has become so very, very popular. So I'm going to start with the barrel knot.
Fonda says once again, you're making it difficult to pick a favorite.
Oh, thank you so much, Fonda. That's a good compliment. I will take it. Thank you so much, my dear. But if you guys have favorites, let me know what they are in the comments. I always love to know what appeals to you.
Kathy K says, yeah, pick a couple.
Oh, yay! Thank you so much, Kathy. All right, so I have a 12-inch length of 1.5 millimeter leather. Lots of different measurements. We have metric, we have, I don't know, what is the other option actually? Metric and?
Standard?
Standard, I guess. Yes. Tell me in the comments, what is the non-metric system called? Anyway, we have 1.5 millimeter leather in this kind of a rich, almost reddish brown. And we are going to make a loop out of it. So the loop we're going to make is going to be the loop to use with our flower. We're going to be using it as a button. So the flower needs to come through very, very easily.
That's right. Kathy G says imperial.
Imperial.
There we go.
Thank you so much, Kathy. You are so clever.
Katie S says, I'm torn between 3 colorways.
Ooh, what are your favorites? Okay, ladies. So as you can see, this can come through very easily. And in fact, this loop is going to tighten up a little bit. So, so just give yourself a little extra room. And I will tell you, there are 2 different size buttons. So otherwise, I would actually give you the measurement. I believe the measurement is 2 inches. So this entire loop is approximately 2 inches. However, for the smaller button, you'll just have to adjust a little bit. And you saw how I'm doing this. I mean, I can pretty much just eye it and know. And we will also be able to adjust a little bit as we're making the knot. Okay, so I made a loop. I'm just holding on to the loop with my hands. And then, actually, you know what? I don't need this long. No, I'll keep the tail. That's okay. So I will make a small loop on the other side. So the hardest part of this is going to be just holding on to this little construction, right? And as long as you're able to hold on to it, it's going to work beautifully. So unfortunately, I can't let go, but here, let me just hold it this way. So I made a figure 8. And my preference is that the short end of the figure eight lines up with the short end of the leather, and the larger part of the figure eight lines up on the same side with the longer part of our leather. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Let me know if it does. In my head it does, but sometimes I just need a little validation. Okay, so now I have a length of 28 gauge wire. And so my trick in making these knots, and not everybody uses a piece of wire when they make this kind of a knot. This is just kind of my own thing that I came up with to make it really, really easy. So you saw what I just did. I just wrapped it really, really snug. And you know what? Before I go any further, I will put the flower button through this again and just make sure that this still fits. So it needs to still fit. And it's going to tighten up just a tiny little bit. So if you think that it's not fitting, it's just as easy to undo the wire, move it a little tiny bit, or move it however much you need to move it, and do it again. And I like to wrap maybe once or twice or 3 times, whatever makes you confident. Okay, so I wrapped 3 times. So probably once is not quite enough. So I wrapped 3 times, and again, you know, just for the sake of reminding you to make sure that the button fits, just put it through. And now we are going to just make a little tight twist, just very snug right next to where you wrapped around the leather. And you know, if you want to make it a little bit more snug, you can always use a flat nose pliers and just go in the same direction, but please don't overdo it. So maybe just like 1 rotation and that's it, because it's a fairly fine wire. It's just very, very easy to break it. Okay, so once I have made that little twist, I really have no use for all the excess wire. So I am going to cut this off, and I just leave, normally I just leave about 2 to 3 millimeters of twisted wire, and that's it. And so now what we're going to do is we're just going to just kind of lay it down so that it's nice and parallel to our leather, because our goal is to cover it up.
Betty says those flowers are really cute.
Oh, thank you so much, Betty. Did you want to see my little bouquet? Here, let me show you all the flowers, because I just think that each one of them is so beautiful. And doesn't this kind of remind you of fall? These are very fallish sort of colors. Think mums and zinnias, and maybe some late fall flowers, and for sure hydrangeas. We just talked about hydrangeas and my beautiful tree. Okay, ladies, so this is what our figure 8 looks like. So we have a big loop, we have a little loop, and we have this little tail, which, you know, we really don't need that tail any longer. Once you have formed your figure 8, you can get rid of most of the little tail. And, you know, I cut it about 2 to 3 inches beyond where it's wrapped. All right, so now we have a secret weapon.
2 to 3 millimeters.
Did I say inches?
Yes.
You know what? I'm just excited. So it's millimeters. You guys knew what I meant. Tony knew what I meant, but I'm so glad that he clarified. Thank you, Tony. So, this is the little tail. Again, it's only about 3 millimeters past where I wrapped. And I'm going to put this little cocktail straw. This is our secret weapon. And it goes right in the center of the figure 8. You can see how I'm placing it right in the center. And now we are just going to start wrapping around the straw, including the figure 8. We're just wrapping the whole thing together. I'm actually going to turn this around because I'm wrapping towards my right hand and it's just easier to hold it this way. So how many times do we wrap? I don't know. I guess like maybe 5 to 7. I think 5 to 7 is a really good number. And of course, make sure that you still have a little opening in your small loop. I have 6 right now, and I feel like it's probably enough. And so this is what I'm doing. I'm taking the end of this leather and I'm putting it right into the straw. This is very easy if you do it this way with the straw. So put it right in the straw. It comes out on the other side. Now we're going to grab not only the end of our leather, but also the straw. And just pull the whole thing right through that coil. And so now we don't need the straw anymore. I'm going to put it away. And I'm just going to start tightening this little loop, okay? Or not even so much the loop, I'm tightening the coil, right? So this coil. So let me do this. Before I commit, I'm just going to once more put the flower through, make sure that it works. And now we can really tighten this as much as we can.
Linda says, so the straw is basically a spacer for the leather?
Yes, Linda, you're so clever. Thank you so much for clarifying for everyone. It is literally just a spacer for the leather. It gives us a very predictable little tunnel to put our leather through, and it makes it very easy. I have done it without the straw when I didn't have a straw. But believe me, it's like a million times easier with a straw.
Pammy J says, good evening. Facebook kept saying you would start soon. Well, so glad I found you.
Oh, yay. Hi, Pammy J. I'm so glad you found us as well. Yay. All right, ladies. So, so this is what we made. And before we cut off this end, we kind of want to glue this part. And you know, not everybody glues it, but I do like to glue it because depending on the wear and tear, I just want to make sure that it does not come apart. And this is what I found. I found that GS cement is my favorite glue for this part. I mean, you know, I have 3 favorite glues. I know I talk about my 3 favorite glues, and this is like here, it's GS cement. And this is the medium viscosity one. So I have, in fact, we will be using the Super New glue in just a little bit. But I love the Super New glue for certain things. I love GS cement for what we're about to do here. And then my 3rd favorite glue is E6000, and that is very viscous and gooey, and we would not use it for this project at all.
Ellen says, this is brilliant.
Oh, thank you so much, Ellen. I don't know if it's quite brilliant, but thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Okay, so this is why I like GS cement for this, because it has that lovely little applicator. And you know what? When you take out this little stopper, the glue starts to come out immediately. So that's probably the only thing I'm not quite, you know, a fan of when it comes to this glue, but that's okay. That's why I have a little piece of paper right underneath, and I don't really worry about it dripping, because if it does, it will drip right on the piece of paper. So I don't like to over glue, so I'm just going to remove whatever just oozed out, and then I'm just going to put the applicator right inside of the knot. And because it just kind of oozes out, I don't even have to squeeze it. I just wait a couple of seconds, and then I will do exactly the same thing on the other side. So we're just going to insert it right in. That applicator is really cool. It just makes it go in. And if your little coils of leather are nice and snug and right next to each other, you will never see remnants of glue, any glue oozing out, nothing at all. So on the outside, it's just leather, and that's that. So once I glue, that's it, I'm done. And I'm just going to cut off the excess leather, and our clasp is ready to go. Now, if you feel, and I don't really feel that I need extra glue, but if you feel that, maybe you don't have enough glue or whatever, if you feel that somehow it's a little bit loose, you can always move, and you can see the glue inside. So I don't need to do any extra, but you can move the coils apart very, very gently, add a little glue, and just move them right back together immediately, and it's perfect. Okay, so this is what I just made. And I'm going to put this down, just set it aside, and of course I'm going to put my cap back on the glue, and then we're going to move on to the next few steps.
Julie sent an emoji. I think it's saying she loves your project.
Oh, thank you so much, Julie. So this dries in about 5-10 minutes. And I'm just setting it aside until we are ready to use it. And we, in fact, are starting on the opposite side of the bracelet. So we're starting at the button right here. So by the time we get all the way down to this side, this guy will be completely dry and ready to go.
M says, hello from New Zealand. First time I've watched you.
Oh, hi. And thank you so much for joining us. I'm from New Zealand. I have once been to your airport. Sadly, we didn't get much further than the airport, but it was a very nice experience, and we hope to get back to your beautiful country. In the meantime, welcome. I'm so glad you joined us. It's a long story, but we were in Australia, and we, not necessarily through the fault of our own, but we missed our plane, so we ended up going back through New Zealand. And I have a hoodie from the airport. That's it. That's my experience in New Zealand. Okay, ladies, so we made a clasp. Yay. Now we're going to make the rest of the bracelet. And to make the rest of the bracelet, we are first going to make a self needle. So I probably should have grabbed an extra piece of paper, but you know what? The good thing about paper is that you can always tear it in half. And so we're going to fold this so that we can make a self needle. And I know most of you who have been watching me for a while, you have already made like a schmillion self needles. But anybody who's never made a self needle, this is about to change your life. So I'm going to be working with Ceylon to make this bracelet. And with Ceylon, we generally do not use needles, but it's very nice to make this last part, very close to the end, a little more stiff, like a needle. So for that, I am using super new glue, and I'm just putting a little bit of super new glue along the end, maybe like 1.5 inches. And I'm going to remove as much as I can. So that squeak, that's music to my ears, because we want to remove as much as possible. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other end. And again, just remove as much as you possibly can. So the thing about super new glue is it dries very, very quickly. So by the time I get my ducks in a row, these ends will be dry. So this is what I'm going to do. I need a little QB. Okay, I love QBs. You guys probably know this already because they're in so many of my projects. And one thing that I want to point out, not all of my samples have this little snowflake spacer. And that is because I started making the bracelet samples. I got a little carried away. I made quite a few, as you can see. Normally I just have one, maybe like 2-3 colorways, but this, I had so much fun coming up with these colorways. So I made the first 3. Let's see, it's these 3. It's the stormy sky and the golden amethyst and falling leaves. And so these 3 do not have the little snowflake spacer. And then I got to the next one. I think it was this one. So I got to the next flower, and this is Purple Sunrise, by the way. And this flower, for some reason, had a slightly larger opening. I don't know why, because I thought they were all made in the same mold. And so the design would not have worked without a spacer. So I went and I got this spacer, and I thought, you know, I really like this spacer here, even though you really can't see it when you wear it. But it's just kind of cute, you know, it just completes it. So whether you need it or not, I included the snowflake spacer in all of the kits. And you can use it or not use it. It's up to you. It's not a big decision. So anyway, but that is the whole story. That is why, if you notice that some of them have the snowflake spacer and some of them do not, that is how it came about. So once our ends are completely dry, we're going to use just a regular wire cutter and cut them at as sharp of an angle as we possibly can. And this is what I have. I have 2 little self needles. They're going to make my life so much easier as I make this bracelet. So we're going to string the QB onto, okay, so let me move these once more, just because, so we don't take up too much space with our samples. And so we're going to string, once I untangle it from my tool, we're going to string the QB right into the center of what's going to be our bracelet. So there it is, and now we're going to put both ends through the center of the flower. So it is that QB that's going to just kind of hold on to it. And sometimes it doesn't lay exactly right, so I'll take my chain nose pliers or flat nose pliers and I'll just kind of course correct a little bit, because I want to see that pretty stamping in the center of the QB. So now we're going to put both ends through the snowflake spacer. So the snowflake spacer has a much smaller hole, and therefore it's going to hold on to our flower really nice and very snugly. Now I may need to, before I tie the knot, I may just course correct this one more time, Once we tie the knot, that's it. That QB will stay in place on its own. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to hold on to the flower, and I try to make this as snug as I possibly can. I wrap the string around my 2 fingers and just kind of push it through the loop. This is just a very regular overhand knot. You guys have made this probably many, many times before, and I have too. So everybody knows how to make an overhand knot, and we make it as snug as we possibly can. And if you weren't able to be really snug and get super close to it, you can always just kind of pull on the Ceylon. This is regular Ceylon. It is very, very strong. I can't imagine you can break it even if you try. Please don't view it as a challenge. Okay, so, but you saw how I pulled on it and it's fine. And so now, in order for us to be able to clasp this really easily, we want this to be very kind of drapey and soft. And so we are going to tie another knot, leaving maybe a millimeter or 2 in between the 2 knots.
Allie says another reason to love the snowflake spacers.
Yes, Allie, the snowflake spacers are so crazy versatile. I absolutely adore them.
Katie S says putting them all back out didn't make it any easier to choose one colorway.
Oh, thank you so much, Katie. That is so sweet. I love it. I love that it's difficult for you to choose a colorway. That means I did my job. Okay, so now we're going to put another cubette next to the second knot. So remember, we have the snowflake spacer, we have the knot right next to the snowflake spacer, we have a little bit of space, just a little teeny space, like 1 or 2 millimeters, another knot, and the QB, and another knot after the QB. And I'm repeating all of this because, as you guys know, I have no printed directions, so this video is your set of directions, and I just want this to be really, really clear.
Letty says beautiful.
Thank you so much, Letty. Okay, so sometimes I have to pull on one and then the other until the knot is just right. So another little overhand knot, and that is holding the QB in place. So, so now we can start stringing our pretty beads. And this is what we have. So we have a little set of watermelon tourmaline. And as you know, watermelon tourmaline implies that there are the reds and the greens, and sometimes there are other colors as well. So this is kind of on the darker side of watermelon tourmaline. So I have a pink, I have a red and a black, a couple of greens. So I'm just going to lay them out the way I think it might be the most striking. Maybe we'll put the black right in the center. Okay, and now we're just going to string these onto our string. So the holes in the watermelon tourmaline are not, obviously they're large enough for both of the strands to go through, but they are smaller, just a little bit smaller than either the fuchsite or the Mongolian agate. And so for that reason, I have just staggered the ands a little bit, because when we made those self needles with the 2 ands, it does make the string just a little bit thicker. It does make our life easier because it makes the string nice and stiff. It's very easy to string onto. But please know, if you are having difficulties stringing all of the beads, just stagger the ands. And you will only need to do that just with the tourmaline, which is probably why I picked this colorway. Plus, I really love this colorway myself, and I felt that I needed one of these bracelets. So I'm going to slide all my tourmaline right here, and next we are, and so I don't know if you guys can see, I have just slightly spaced them out just to give myself a little room, because you know what I don't want to do is bunch them up and make it as tight as I can, and then like if I bunch them up like this, then it doesn't really want to curve, and I want this to be able to curve. So we need to just leave like a hair of space. And then it will work out really nicely. And once we have that little set of tourmaline strung onto our bracelet, we are going to put a daisy spacer right over both ends. It's a slightly larger daisy spacer with a nice large hole. And after the daisy spacer, we're going to start stringing and knotting our fuchsite. So this is what fuchsite looks like. It's a really beautiful, almost like an emerald green, but it has a little blue. Can you guys see the blue? It has like a little bit of blue. It has a little bit of pink from the ruby. Sometimes it has some white inclusions. It's a really just a vibrant, rich looking stone. So what we're going to do is start stringing the fuchsite onto our Ceylon, both strands of Ceylon. And
There's a knot after the flower.
oh, you know, there is a knot, or sometimes there's not a knot. So actually in most of them, I didn't put a knot in right after the spacer. You know, whether you do or you don't, it just works out either way. However, I really like the knots in this part of the bracelet. And so I like them for a couple of different reasons. By putting the knots in, we are giving our bracelet a little extra drapiness. So that's the mechanics part of it. But also just pure aesthetics part, you know, for me, the color of the Ceylon is really part of the colorway, you know, and I love it when you can see a little bit of the fiber. And so I really like showing the knots. So the other thing is I actually purposely wore a bracelet to show you guys. I really considered making some of the Ceylon go on the outside of the beads. So if you wanted to make your bracelet that way, you certainly could. So so let me first show you how I did it this time, but then I'll just give you a little idea maybe for this project or for a different project. And so we're just going to be making a series of overhand knots again. So very same thing. Wrap the Ceylon around your fingertips, grab onto the string, pull it right into the loop, and create a knot pretty close to the bead, but I try not to make them super tight. And that is so that it's a little bit drapey.
Ellie says, yes, you can see all of those cool colors, and that little pinky pink color, and there's is in there is awesome, and it complements the tourmaline just beautifully.
Oh, thank you so much, Ellie. I am so glad you guys are seeing what I'm seeing. Okay, so this is essentially it. You're just going to knot the entire group of gemstones in the center. So in most of these, they're gemstones, and in one of them they are reproduction beads, which are just as beautiful, but they're a bit on the chunky side. But either way, you just keep knotting in between the beads. And for that extra idea, if you want to go around the beads with the thread, which again, I opted not to this time. I felt that it was enough to just have the knot showing. But, you know, if you want to do it a little differently, you can always string the beads onto just one of the strands and then use the other strand to go around and then tie the knot in exactly the same way. And it will work out slightly differently. So just a thought. But either way, we're just going to keep knotting until we are done with the center segment of our beads. However, let me talk a little bit about sizing. So clearly, we are all unique and different. There's no other person that is exactly like you. So, you know what? I sound like Mr. Rogers. I just realized. And I don't mind. So, anyway. So, given that we're all unique and we are all uniquely sized, you can make your bracelet a little smaller, you can make it a little larger. You have extra beads to make it a little larger. I believe you can make it up to about 9 inches or so. This bracelet is about 7 3/4 inches. And so normally I wear bracelets that are like maybe, I don't know, 6 3/4 to 7, if they are made with fairly small beads. However, the chunkier the beads, the larger, the longer the bracelet should be, because the chunkiness of the beads will kind of take up a little room and you actually need a slightly longer bracelet. Also, it kind of depends on whether you like a little bit looser bracelets, a little tighter, so however you like to wear them. So with that in mind, this bracelet, what did we just say, is 7 3/4, I think we said. Let's do this once more. So yes, 7, oh no, this is like closer to 8. So this is 8 inches. And I used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So in the kit, you will get, I believe, a dozen of these beads. With some beads, it will vary a little bit depending on the size of the bead. Of course, these beads, you don't need quite as many. But if you look at the picture on the front of the kit, you can literally count the beads and then just add or subtract accordingly. And you can always play with everything before you make it really permanent.
Allie liked your Mr. Rogers reference.
Oh, thank you so much.
And Linda says, Miss Irina's neighborhood, LOL.
Oh, yay, you guys, friends, welcome to my neighborhood.
Betty says, those green flowers are making me want a piece of watermelon.
I know, they kind of do look so delicious, like a watermelon. I love watermelon, seriously. I know it's hard to get good watermelon once it's no longer the watermelon season, but we are kind of lucky. We have a Woodman's, and you guys, it's the best watermelon. So anyway, you know, you never know where the conversation goes in these videos. I'm just finding it a little bit amusing. Yay! So anyway, we're going to keep knotting our beads until, through the magic of Facebook Live, look at this, we have this just about done.
This comment came in way late. It says, M says, it's always good to find someone new. That was a really good demo of a barrel knot.
Oh, thank you so much, Em. So glad you enjoyed it. So what time is it now in New Zealand? So in the meantime, we are going to move right along, and we still have three more beads. This is the Mongolian agate, and I kind of like the ombre effect. So Mongolian agate comes in so many different colors. It comes in the whites and off-whites and pinks and almost carnelian colors and kind of greenish colors. So for this project, I thought the pinks, the reddish pinks, were just really perfect to complement the pinks in the fuchsia and the button and just complete the whole picture. So I picked these, and we're going to string them in this sort of an ombre order. And I'm just going to put them over both ends of our Ceylon.
Barb says, would you believe I forgot about this until now? I'll have to go back and watch the replay for sure.
Oh, yay, Barb. No worries, no worries. You know, life happens occasionally. We forget things. But yeah, this is a good time for me to mention that we archive all of these videos, and you can always re-watch whenever it is convenient for you, even at midnight. All right, ladies. So I have all my little Mongolian agates on, and now it is time to attach the loop with the barrel knot. And so a little spoiler, we will be covering the knot, the knot in the Ceylon, of course, not the barrel knot. We're going to be covering it with this very large crimp cover. This is actually a 5mm crimp cover, and it works so well with double string Ceylon. So I'm going to put both strands into the small side of the loop, in the small side of the figure eight, and untangle. And so because I just showed you this 5mm crimp cover, you already know that this is going to take 5mm. So it's going to sit right here, and it's going to take approximately 5mm. So that means we have to leave approximately a 5mm space between the small loop and the first bead. And if you're not quite sure what 5mm is, it's always better to leave a little more rather than a little less. So if you leave a little more, all that means is that you're just going to have a little bit more of the fiber showing, and there's really nothing wrong with that. Okay, so I just tied a, why do I always forget what this knot is called?
Is it an overhand knot?
No, not an overhand.
Surgeon's knot.
No, not a surgeon's knot. Okay, let's guess all of the knots we know.
It's not a
Half hitch. It's called half hitch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm making a series of half hitched knots. And the first one was the one attaching the barrel knot to the bracelet. The second one is right next to that. And for good measure, let's just go ahead and tie a third one. So if you're familiar with half hitch knots, they are not the type of knot that stays in place really well. It's, you know, I'm tightening it, but on its own, it's just not going to stay in place. So it's always really good to use a little bit of glue on this knot.
Karen says half hitch.
Yay, Karen! See, Karen knew.
Yep.
Okay, so thank you so much for telling me, because you know, sometimes even like things that I've said like are I don't know, 100 times. Sometimes you know how you just forget. So I'm going to use super new glue, and I always put the glue on the string, the excess part of the string, rather than the actual knot itself, and just kind of let it run down. And this is my way of controlling how much glue ends up on the actual knot. If I'm not quite sure, I might just add a little more. And, if it's not quite going the way I want it to go, I might use a little piece of paper and guide the glue towards the knot. But I never put the glue directly on the knot because if there's too much glue on the knot, the glue will eventually run down your working string, and we don't want that. We really, really don't want that, because then this part of the string will become brittle and eventually your bracelet will break. So that's sad, right? We don't want to be sad. And so once we have glued it, now we're just waiting for the glue to dry on our string. And it's dry. It dries so very quickly. And I am just cutting off all of the excess string. And we don't need this little piece of paper anymore. But we do need our crimp cover or knot cover. And we're also going to need our flat nose pliers. If you don't have a flat nose pliers, you can do this with chain nose as well. But with these larger ones, I do have a preference. I prefer doing it with the flat nose. With the smaller ones, I usually use the chain nose. It's just more, I don't know, it just works better. So I have put the crimp cover or the knot cover right over my knot. And now I am going to use my flat nose pliers to just very gently squeeze the crimp cover. Just give it a good squeeze, but once these two sides come together at the edges, don't go any further, because in order to close this seam right here, we're going to have to go from this position to this position. So we're going to reposition our flat nose pliers and just give it a little smush. And you see how I'm just very gently pressing on just the one side of the knot cover. And now I'm going to turn it around, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And our seam is just about closed, but maybe we'll have to finesse it just a teeny bit more and turn it around again. And that's about it. So now we have a seam, but it's literally just a round bead. So we have just closed the crimp cover, and it looks like a little round bead. And guess what? We are all done. And now of course, I'm going to model this for you.
Myra says, I like to use my crimping pliers to close the crimp cover. It doesn't allow the cover to slip as it's closed.
You know what? I have heard this from multiple people, that they like to use the crimping pliers, and I think that's completely valid. If that works for you, that's wonderful. The reason I prefer using a flat nose or a chain nose pliers is because it doesn't scratch my crimp cover. So, and I know that it's very minimal if it does scratch, but I don't know, it makes me happy to use a tool that is completely flat and smooth on the inside to close the crimp cover. But of course, having said that, you use whatever works for you. That's lovely. It's a great option.
Linda was wondering if the crimping pliers could be used, and M says she uses her crimping pliers too.
Oh, fantastic. fantastic. So clearly, you guys, it works well for a lot of people. So give it a shot, see how it works. And how do you close the seam? Does it work really well for you guys? For the specifically for the ladies who use their crimping pliers, does it work really well to close the seam, or do you have to do a little extra with a different tool to close the seam? I'm just curious. It's, I always learn something from you.
Yolanda says, so cute.
Thank you so much, Yolanda. Okay, ladies, so I'm going to show you all the colorways one more time, and you can decide what your favorites are. So I don't know, do we want to lay them out this way or the straight way? Maybe this way. What do you think?
Sure, that looks nice.
Thank you. Okay, guys, so this is the candy apple hydrangea. And again, we have Mongolian agate and fuchsite and watermelon tourmaline. And next, we have golden amethyst. And in golden amethyst, and you already know that all of these have vintage actually vintage reproduction buttons. We used vintage molds as well as vintage glass for these buttons, and this is the end of them. And so in the golden amethyst, we have amethyst, we have golden tiger eye, and smoky quartz. And this one is stormy sky. This is like one of my go-to colorways. I love grays and blues together. And this is like just a little touch of maybe taupe. And so this is Stormy Sky. I know I already said that. And we have Sodalite and titanium coated agate, and then a little bit of dyed jade, which is actually the color of blue chalcedony.
Myra says, yes, it works well. I just slowly work around the cover until it's completely closed. It doesn't leave any scratches either.
Oh, that's fantastic, Myra. That is wonderful. Maybe I just did not give it enough of a chance myself. All right, ladies. So this is Falling Leaves colorway. And in this colorway, we have Bird's Eye Rhyolite and Red Tiger Eye. And again, a little bit of that smoky, it just goes with everything. So this is Smoke Quartz. And last but not least, we have Purple Sunrise. And Purple Sunrise is just a little bit different from the others. We have dyed jade, we have a little amethyst, and then we have those chunky three-sided window beads in the Reproduction glass. And again, this is the glass that we had made in Germany, much like the buttons, and we're getting pretty close to the end of this color. And now I'm going to make a little bit of room so that I can talk about my preview.
Althea says, love this bracelet. I bought this colorway.
Oh, thank you so much. Which colorway?
Kim K says, hi, everyone. Just able to join, so I'll be sure to watch the replay. Gorgeous
Oh,
bracelets.
thank you so much, Kim. Yay! And well, Tony is looking. So I know I've said this before, but please be patient with us in terms of the when you make comments, right? We don't always get them in a timely manner. So we love your comments, and we appreciate you giving us suggestions and just saying hello, commenting on anything. But please know we don't always get them as soon as you send them. So sometimes they come in at the most unusual times. So please be prepared for this.
Althea says the green color.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, the one that I demoed. You know what? I have to say that is definitely one of my favorites. And the one that I just put on my wrist, this one, that one is staying on my wrist.
Allie says, so pretty. Another fun way to use Ceylon.
Oh, thank you so much, Allie. Yeah, I love Ceylon. I love it. It's so much fun to create with it because not only is it really, really, really strong and it has a wonderful drape, but also it comes in such a gorgeous variety of colors, and that is what I love about it. So, you probably have noticed that I have a little something extra on my desk. So this is very, very exciting. Tomorrow, when we do our Facebook Live shopping event, and this, of course, is tomorrow at 9 o'clock Central Standard Time, the way, the same time we normally do the live shopping events. I am going to have these gorgeous, gorgeous copper pieces. And they are created by Laurel Moon Jewelry, who is awesome in every way and very talented. And she creates these pieces in a couple of different ways. This one happens to be etched. But I'm sure you will hear about the various processes that she uses tomorrow, because guess what? Tomorrow she's going to be here with me. Yay!
It's going to be a sighting.
There's going to be a Lauren sighting, yes. So she's going to be with me for part of the video, for part of the shopping event, and she's going to tell us stories about how she creates these pieces. So we're going to learn something new tomorrow, ladies. And then, of course, I will have a variety of gemstones that I picked out to go with her gorgeous pieces. And we'll have some copper findings and essentially everything that you need to make these into finished pieces of jewelry. So we'll have turquoise and mookaite and copper spacers and findings and so much more.
Pam says, love these bracelets and the techniques used to make them. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Pam. I'm so glad you enjoyed.
Allie says, can't wait to see the replay.
Yay! Thank you so much, Allie. Okay, ladies, and one more preview. So Thursday, October 31st, and I do realize the irony of it all. So on Halloween, on October 31st, I will be doing Christmas projects. They're going to be icicles every year. I come up with a variety of new icicles. These are all completely new. And some of these you may have already seen in the event listing if you peeked. And if you haven't peeked, please go to the event section and just say you're coming. Or interested, or whatever it is that you want to say. And this one you have not seen yet because I just made it today.
Barb says, all gorgeous bracelets. It'll be hard to choose which one to make.
Oh, yay. Thank you so much, Barb. I really appreciate it. I love it when it's hard to choose. Okay, ladies. So once again, the icicles, and I'm sure I'll have more icicles by next Thursday. Although I have to say, I don't have a ton of time to come up with maybe just one more. I know for sure I'll have one more in addition to these four. But the reason I won't have a lot of time to come up with extra icicles is because we're going to be in Minneapolis over the weekend. So if you are watching from the Minneapolis area, come and see us at
the Twin Cities Bead Bazaar.
Yay! Twin Cities Bead Bazaar is this weekend. It's both Saturday and Sunday. So if you're anywhere around that area, come on down. We would love to meet you. And that's pretty much all of my announcements.
Katie S. says, fun. I did some acid etching of metal in high school jewelry design class many, many years ago. Most given as gifts, but I still have a belt buckle. Good memories from that class.
Oh, how fun! So I'm sure you're familiar with some of the processes that are used for this work. But tomorrow, Lauren is actually going to surprise you because some of them are etched and yet others are engraved because she used to etch all of her pieces, but more recently she has switched techniques and it gives you a slightly different look. So we're all going to enjoy that tomorrow.
Myra says, your color palettes are always gorgeous, and sends a heart.
Well, thank you so much, Myra. Hearts to everybody in the chat, you guys.
Yolanda says, oh, cute. I'm ready for decorations.
Yay, Yolanda, let's decorate. I love this time of the year. I love decorating. I love coming up with these festive pieces. We are going to have so much fun for the next couple of months. We are going to see a lot of festive projects, both jewelry and not so much jewelry.
Betty says, new ideas for Christmas.
Yay, thank you, Betty.
Ellie says, so looking forward to the icicles. They are so pretty. Hopefully one of my friends from work will be able to join next week.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Karen says, safe travels this weekend. I wish I could go this year. I will try to get online while at PT tomorrow for my son.
Okay, well, I appreciate the sentiment, wishing you could go, but who knows? Maybe a different year, maybe a different show. You never know, and good luck at PT. And maybe we will see you guys this weekend, some of you. And if we don't see you this weekend, I hope to see you. Well, of course, I hope to see you tomorrow for our Friday morning marketplace. We'll have a great time with Lauren. And then I'll see you next Thursday. In the meantime, have a wonderful and creative evening.